Hi guys, welcome to the second video. So this is part of the week one still, and we're going to go through a bit of a sit and a wait, and we're also going to go through leave it. So I'll explain what they are as we go along, but the sit and wait is the first thing that we're going to go through. It doesn't matter if it's a down and a wait. If your dog prefers to go in a down position, that's fine. It's all about the self-control of them waiting in that position. So for me, the sit and the wait is asking the dog to sit in a location, sit, and then wait while we walk away and go back to them. Good. So it's when we don't want to run out the door first, or it's when we're asking to sit and wait while we leave the room. So we're trying to get them to sit and wait while we do something else. Could be while you're cooking dinner, sitting and wait on the bed while you go and cook your dinner. So different reasons behind using this cue. So to start it all off, we want to make it nice and easy. So remember in our last video of the marker word saying good or yes or a click. So we want to try and make sure we are using them. And for the start of it, making sure that we always go back to the dog so that they don't come to us from it. Because we want to try and get them into the habit of us going back to them so they stay stationary. It's a lot harder to teach a dog to sit and wait and then call them to you because they're always anticipating coming to you. So when you're starting off, especially with puppies, you want to go back to them all the while. So to start it all off, go into that sit position that we learned last week. And simple as this, just literally get them to sit there, get a couple of treats in your hand. Good. And reward intermittently, every few seconds. Have your hands in the up. Good. And reward. And again. Good. And reward. And then what we're going to do is start moving backwards slowly. So if your dog's one that doesn't quite like standing still, just literally shuffle your leg back and forward again. So just subtlest little cue. So I'll do it again with your other leg. Back and back again. Good. And mark and reward it. All we're trying to do is get a dog to be in a stationary position. So probably do like 5 or 6 times. Good. And then stop so that they don't get too wound up. Good. Until you can get to the stage where you're rocking backwards or you're stepping backwards that 1 or 2 steps. So I'm going to break him out of it, come back again and do exactly the same thing again, but this time I'm going to make it harder. Okay, sit. Hand signal up, step away, step forward, good. And again, hand signal up, step away, step forward, good. And this time I'll make it easier again. Good. Make it a little bit harder. When the dogs have learned a couple of steps at a time, that's when you start adding in the wait cue. So the hand signal's up the whole time, but the wait comes in once they know it. So once they've done like 5 or 6 repetitions that have been really good, you can start adding in wait before you move. So your hand signal comes up, you ask them to wait, step back, step forward, good, and reward. So that when they start understanding what they've got to do, that's when you add in the signal. Otherwise, they might start thinking that wait means to come to you, or they might think wait means, oh, occasionally I'll wait. So you want it to be perfect. So you want it to be able to say to them, wait, and they do it every time. So don't use it until you know your dog's not going to move. Quite simple. So we're going to move on then to making that a little bit harder at the end of the session. So after we've done the leave, I'll tell you how to make it a bit harder or increase the time on it and things like that. So I'll give you some tips. But if you have a go at home after you pause this video, and we'll move on to the next session. So we're going to move on to a leave cue then now. So a leave for me is that they leave this item and never touch it. So we don't want them to ever grab it when we ask them to leave it. So it's as you walk along the road and there's a bird go on the floor and you think, no, I don't want them to have that, leave it. Yeah? Or you're in the house and you drop a bit of chicken off your plate, oh, leave it, you don't want them to have it. So it's making sure that you're not asking to leave it as if you would with the dinner. So you're not going to leave and then eventually take it. With that, I would say that was a wait. So you'd be sit and wait while the dinner goes on the floor and then, okay, get it. So that you're then releasing them to go and get it. Whereas a leave is the fact that they're never going to touch the item. So in the home scenario, probably your shoes, your slippers, your socks, things like that that puppies love to run around with. We can ask them to leave it before they've even got it in their mouth. So as well as that, it's not a drop cue. We're not trying to ask them to drop it when they've already got it in their mouth. It's before they've even got that item, we're trying to ask them to leave it. So as we take our shoes off, we say leave, and we put them on the floor, and then they leave it for the whole day. Ideally. I know at the minute it probably seems far off, but yeah. So we start it all off really simply. So the way we do it is have 2 treats in our hand, one that they can have and one that they can't have. I've got one that's different, a big one here, and I've got a little one in the other hand. So the one that you can't have is this big one. He's not allowed this one. And we can start building up that leave cue by having our hands behind our back, and we bring it out up high, and as soon as he looks at it and looks away, good. And he did a little eye flick there. His eyes just literally moved over to my head. That's what I'm looking for. It doesn't matter if he looks at you, or if they look at the floor, or anywhere. As long as they disengage from this, that's the whole idea. They're getting rewarded for it. So the hand comes up high, good, and then reward. Look away, gets rewarded. Again. Good. Each time you do it, we're going to start getting it gradually lower and lower. But remember, both hands behind your back to start it, because we want it to be new and novel. We want them to think, oh, treat, and then look away straight away. That's what we're looking for. So don't go all the way low if your dog can't do it yet. Good. Because it's not worth it, like them going and getting it. Then you've got to reset and go back to where you were before. So do it high to start with, rewarding them for looking away. If they start clocking on and think, oh, the treat's coming from the other hand, then practice it the other way around. Good. So have your hand high this side and gradually bring it down. The idea behind it is that we can progress it to the stage where we can ask them to sit, wait, and say leave while we've got it, good, while we've got it lower to the ground. And AJ doesn't know this one as well, to be fair. So sit, right, leave. So yeah, he doesn't quite get this one yet. So we can get to a stage where we can ask them to leave and get it on the floor or get it on the chair so that they're not taking the item that you've just asked them to leave. Yeah. So if you practice that at home, pause this video for a few minutes. We're looking literally for the eye contact away, the eyes coming away from the treat, ideally towards you, and rewarding those behaviours. So remember to mark when they look away from it. If they're not necessarily engaging, I've got a few tips to try and help you to get them engaged, and we can start transferring it over. So at the end of this video, I'll tell you how to kind of transfer it over to other items in the household as well. So if you want to pause it and have a go at the leave first, and then we'll come back to that later. Perfect. So, obviously going back to the weight then, to make it a little bit harder, or to give you some ideas to try and progress it a bit. So I don't like to go through too much in one, so that's why I thought I'd have it at the end. So a sit. When you're doing the weight, as we were before, stepping away, you can either start increasing distance, so getting further away from your dog, or you can start changing it around so that you're doing other things with your dog. For example, sitting away might mean you turn around from them and walk away. Turn back and reward. Good. Could mean that you go out of sight, so you walk away, you go through a door, just step out of sight for a second and come back in. That's it. The other thing that you can start doing is thinking about trying to get them to sit in there for a longer period of time. So sitting away while you walk away, wait, and then standing there for a few seconds before then going back. Good. And the last little thing, which is a bit of a party trick, is getting to sit and wait while you walk around them in a circle. Ready? Wait. So you go around in a circle. Good. And they stay in that position the whole time. That's what we're looking for. So there's a few different things there to try and progress it from what we had before. So it's just a few different ideas to try and build it up. If you're struggling with the sit and the weight generally, having a bed sometimes is better. So if they're on a stationary object that's not moving, they start understanding a little bit better sometimes. So you can always practice sitting the weight on their bed, so you can build it up that way, because they're more likely to stay on the bed than they are on the cold floor. So that's kind of what we want to try and do to progress that. So we'll move on to the next one, which is a leave cue. So the leave itself, I know obviously we're doing it with the treat or pie, we're doing a bit of what we call tabletop method, so teapot method, where it makes you look like a teapot, you've got your spout up here and your handle down here. And we can start moving it onto items or objects that you don't want your dogs to take. For example, your shoe or your sock, you can start having both behind your hand, both behind your back. The dog in front of you sat down, sit, and then leave, item comes out, they look away, get rewarded. Good. And again, we can do it the same way around. Leave. Good. And eventually, to a stage where you can say, leave. Good. And rewarding them for not taking it. When you've got to that stage where the item's on the floor and they're not taking it, you can then start to leave it down for longer and reward them for coming away from it. So you could leave it down while you're in the front room watching TV. You can say to them, leave, you put it on the floor, they leave it, get rewarded, and then you leave it down for a little bit longer. So then you can keep rewarding them for having a sniffle, thinking about it, and not doing it. So if they come over and go, oh actually no, tell them to leave it and walk off, that's when you reward. Good boy, well done. Like he's just, yeah, good. Like, good to get through. So, and again, like it's one of those things where you want to try and build up to like when you're cooking dinner and you've got some edible substance that they can have, like a bit of chicken or something like that, that you don't really want them to have. You can then just knock it off the plate or knock it off the side, ask them to leave it. If they don't leave it, cover it over with your foot. So that you can start to teach your dogs in scenarios where you're naturally doing something else. So you can practice without them realising you're practicing. And when you ask them to leave it and they leave it, reward them every time, but not with the thing that you're asking them to leave there. So I hope that was helpful. And again, I think that's the last of the first week's videos. So let us know if there is anything that you think we could improve on, or anything that you'd like to kind of see in the next live videos, or anything you'd like us to expand on. But no, it's been really good today. Right, bye.